Hello and welcome back to the Performance Marketing Unlocked podcast. I'm your host, Joseph Arthur, PMW's Multimedia Editor. On today's episode of the show, I'm joined by Paul Evans, the founder and chief positioning engineer at Version. Paul is an industry veteran, as he will tell you, who's been around for quite a while and is an expert in all things marketing leadership, which will be the focus of today's episode for all of you current marketing leaders and those of you listening who aspire to one day do so. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of the Performance Marketing Unlocked podcast. Paul Evans, hello and welcome to the Performance Marketing Unlocked studio. I won't ask you how you're doing today because I know you're a little bit under the weather. Thank you for battling through the cold and coming in to join us.
Pleasure. It was incredible serendipitous timing, like the twice a year that I might get ill, and this is it. So I saved up for you, man.
We saying it's the change of seasons? What's got you? London's weather's been a little bit up and down lately.
Like the summer was quite fleeting, wasn't it? Yeah, and we've come back and it's just rained. So yeah, it could be that. Otherwise, I'm just working my arse off with my own business at the moment. So it could be that as well.
Yeah, we'll get into that, the new business Version. Now, the discussion of today's podcast is going to be centered around leadership and modern marketing. And I think before we jump into how to be an effective leader today, why don't you give the elevator pitch to who you are, what you're doing with the new business, and why you're a bit of an authority on leadership, should we say, when it comes to marketing?
Ooh, good question. You put me right up there. I love that. And I'll try and deliver on that one. So 20 plus, I don't go above 20 in terms of years of experience, because I think after that, it just sounds really old. Classically
marketing
trained
veteran, as we say.
Yeah, we'll go with veteran, thanks. I've got the war wounds, definitely. So yeah, I'm an experienced marketer, having been client side at businesses like Vodafone, Microsoft, Bacardi, in a range of different roles, but largely I specialized within client side media leadership roles and functions, and kind of worked my way up through UK, EMEA, and global roles. And the last role I had was global head of media at Vodafone, where I was looking after about $1 billion worth of media spend across 20 markets and bringing strategy to the operations of media. So we took ownership of our ad technologies and data, and we led and devised a framework and blueprint for in-housing, as an example. So all of that work led me to want to start my own business, which, with a little bit of imposter syndrome behind me, it kind of took me 5 years to do it. But this year I've kind of broken out of my fractional CMO role with a business called Version, which is essentially a positioning studio. I'm trying to reinvent, or I am reinventing positioning for the intelligence era. It's designed to be more data-driven, AI-enabled, and ultimately there to unlock the full business growth potential for businesses so that they can stand out and be seen within the marketplace.
Reinventing positioning. Why was that something you identified as a gap in the market?
Yeah, it's good. Everybody needs that kind of point of genesis, I guess, in these things, or problems to solve. It was two things with me. Over the 5 years when I was fractional CMO for ad tech and media, positioning work and not everybody called it positioning. I don't think everybody kind of realizes what it is as a capability, but it was one of the most frequently requested and one of the capabilities that I enjoyed most delivering for all of my clients over that time. And then a couple of years ago, I also did the Mark Ritson mini MBA as like a marketing refresher. I kind of felt after 20 years, it'd be good to kind of go back to school.
Just make sure you've got the basics still.
Yeah, you know, the 4 Ps and all that, which was good. And great course, but kind of felt, nothing against Mark Ritson at all, the definition of positioning and the role that it played hadn't really been updated for 40 years since the original book came out on it by Rees and Trout. And I was like, we're in the middle of a technology revolution with AI. There's got to be a better way of positioning businesses and informing that work than just gut instinct and, you know, creative whim and storytelling, which is basically where positioning has come from. There needed to be more data and more rigor brought to it, which is what I've done. So I've created positioning engineering, a new form of and way of kind of doing positioning now for B2B businesses.
Amazing. Well, you've established yourself as a industry veteran of 20 plus years. You've been around the block, brand side, agency side, client side. Now, a big problem in modern marketing today, I think, is the lifespan of the CMO. A lot of research has come out that CMOs rarely last beyond 12 months. And as someone who's working as a fractional CMO, you can understand from how things are on that side. But now you've got your own business effectively. You know, it's just you said.
I could
essentially
fire myself.
The CEO, yeah.
That would be fun.
What do you think makes effective leadership in today's marketing landscape, and why do you think it's a point that people have been struggling with of late?
Yeah, it's a good shout, isn't it? It's a really interesting question because I think you could apply like general leadership qualities to this, being able to speak to a vision and communicate well, have integrity and be trusted. But I think as soon as you put marketing in front of leadership and you think about the CMO role, and as a kind of passionate advocate for marketing in the Drucker sense of the definition, right? Where like there's only two functions, is innovation and marketing and business, right? Mm-hmm. It's like that pivotal to the way that you define customer value and the way that you deliver revenue and growth. That's where the marketing leadership should be kind of centered. So in answer to your question, I think being able to always definitively tie back actions with results, being able to do that in the way that a good leader should, with integrity, with trust, and being a visionary and so on like that. But I think the marketer, any marketer, is probably under more pressure than other disciplines because it is this really unique blend of art and science and magic and logic. It's really tough, actually. It's like, I think it's one of the most difficult specialisms within a business that people think is easy, which is kind of insane irony.
The demand of marketers today, it's constantly sort of trying to find a balance between the data-driven decision-making and creative intuition. It's something that we see often in the brand versus performance debate and creative optimization and what AI means for it all. There's a lot of new terms and phrases, but I agree with you that sometimes I don't think marketers get the respect that they deserve for just how difficult their role is. And equally, marketing leaders, it's quite a lot to manage. So how have you in the past made sure that you were appropriately balancing those issues, you know, data-driven optimization alongside creative intuition and ambition?
I want to get to that point as well, but I think preceding that, I think marketers also have to own up and take responsibility for the function and the discipline and its dilution and demise over time as well. Because as I was kind of saying, that marketers should be more kind of accountable and results driven and be able to tie growth back to actions and activities. So much of marketing has been diluted over time, as I say, whether that be kind of functionally diluted, where it, you know, whether it's called growth or it's comms. Only half of all marketers have a professional qualification tied to marketing now. And, you know, I think there's something in that marketing needs, ironically, repositioning. It's a bit like what I've tried to do with positioning.
It touches on almost a respect for the craft there. That's quite a startling statistic that half of people in marketing don't have a marketing degree or a background at all. I mean, it speaks to the fact that there are people that are just jumping into the profession without laying the proper foundations. And I guess that's where, I mean, a lot of the skills gap is something that's a significant hurdle for a lot of marketers, particularly when it comes to hiring these days. So do you think that all goes into it a little bit?
Yeah, and I think I'm bridging questions now because I think it was a good point on data and creativity. And I think data usage and understanding and AI usage, got to be clear skills gaps right now. And being able to blend the two is the marketer's superpower ultimately. And that's what I've done with Version. I'm not intending to do a pitch or anything like that, but like I wanted to bring more rigor to the discipline, and the tools are available to do that now. There are lots of positioning consultants out there that just want to drive a storytelling agenda or a messaging agenda. And the way I see positioning in the way that it can deliver value for businesses is that it's a catalyzer of business strategy. So it's all the way up, like right at the heart of business. So you can only do that if you're informing your positioning process or any marketing process with data. But importantly as well, within the way that I deliver positioning work and any kind of marketing capability and marketing strategy, being able to then kind of infuse the what, which is typically data driven, with the how and the why, which can be more kind of creative and gut instinct driven. That's where the real kind of spark and magic comes out, I think.
Now, I guess what you've been doing with the new business is you've had to strike that balance solely yourself there as, the only person currently. Yeah. As you said, you can't fire yourself, then there'd be no one left.
Yeah.
So you could try.
I've been tempted.
But when you think about scaling and the ambitions of eventually bringing on new people on board and working within a team, are you weary of making sure that balance is still struck when bringing new people on board? Are there any particular hurdles you foresee when you start facing those challenges?
I actually can't wait to hire that second employee into Version. I think it'd be like quite an amazing thing. But I'll always hire on culture and values and ambition and capability, skill set, skills you can teach and learn. But I think, the guy that created Seedlip, I heard a podcast about him, brilliant marketer. And Seedlip is an alcohol-free spirit. It was all about botanicals and plants. He hires with people that love nature. And that's just fucking awesome. And so I would do the same. I think skills can be taught, attitudes and behaviors, they're kind of more DNA.
So to go back on the point about the marketing degree then, is that to say that perhaps we've been fueled by people that are a bit more impassioned as opposed to ones that might have come in off the, basis of a university degree there?
Have I just undermined my own argument?
No, but it's an interesting sort of paradigm to think on there. And it's ultimately, what do you value?
You got to have both. So as much as you can learn skills, you need to learn them still,
There's
right?
the basics.
But you need to marry that with attitudes and behaviors and kind of ambition and desire and intuitive thinking. As much as I can work AI to develop positioning assets, right? I have not yet been able to engineer a prompt that gives me that standout, distinctive positioning asset that I can confidently hand over to a client. You always need a human in the loop, I think. And I hope that will remain the case kind of going forwards. But I'm kind of relating that back to a marketer in terms of like, still need that discipline and rigor, but marry it with, emotion and intuition. I think it's kind of a really powerful combination if you can get there.
Hello, Performance Marketing Unlocked listeners. Host Joe here, interrupting you very briefly to put a call out for mailbag questions. Very soon, we will be recording the first Performance Marketing Unlocked editorial team mailbag, where we take questions from you, the loyal listeners. So please, if you have anything that you would like to have us discuss on the show, whether that be a topic or a specific question, please email it to performancemarketingworld@haymarket.com. Now, back to the show. Speaking on AI and its increasing emergence and the general sort of strategic vision of Version, is there a new channel or a strategy or something that's getting particularly that's particularly exciting you at the minute?
It's not new. I would say LinkedIn is quite interesting at the moment. It's becoming a little bit Marmite for people, I think. But so the kind of context to that answer is that I went off LinkedIn. I used it only for the last 5 years, only really to kind of push if I was, so charity and challenges and stuff like that, which is something I kind of love. I'd fundraise off of LinkedIn, but I didn't really want to kind of put myself out there, and kind of felt it's not a toxic kind of place, but it's full of a lot of dog shit as well. So, but now I'm kind of looking to build Version and build an audience for Version and my services and market the business. And so I'm taking LinkedIn more seriously now. And it's fascinating to start to understand how it works. People immediately think, why does the algorithm hate me? Which it probably does hate me, actually, in my content specifically. But actually, it's about being valuable within the marketplace, which is LinkedIn, to your audience, and being able to create content that is not only relevant, informative, useful, entertaining, but also easy to consume and easy to discover and easy to share. Where I kind of just like to post about stuff, I used to post about stuff that I kind of like woke up on a morning and would, that's what came to mind. There's so much more to it, granularity, but also like content planning and so on.
LinkedIn's a fascinating social channel, I think, because there really isn't another one quite like it, when it sort of, it does both things of, it is a source of entertainment a little bit, and you can find some quite sort of silly and
you've
funny
been reading
things.
My posts.
And I know the guys at Surreal Serial do this really well, where they use what's traditionally a bit more of a business orientated channel as a way to build,
I think that's great,
affinity among other marketers. It's not necessarily consumers, but they could be.
Yeah.
But then the other side of LinkedIn obviously is the professional side, and it's become, within marketing and certainly within journalism, for me, it's a bit of a necessity to have, in some respects, to just maintain a lot of those professional relationships, and it's quite a useful resource for content.
Yep.
As you said, there's a lot of rubbish out there, but when you dig through and you find those golden nuggets, you can almost optimize your feed into just voices that you respect.
Hopefully I'm adding to that quality content distribution now.
People will have to go and find you, Paul. And
that's a great,
they can decide for
great
themselves.
shout. Yeah, follow me on LinkedIn. It's fascinating, having not been somebody that was, I'm kind of like intuitively introverted, I guess, to an extent. And social media, by definition, demands you to be kind of extroverted, and it changes the way you have to look at yourself and project yourself and build a personal brand. I mean, just kill me now.
A phrase I really dislike as well. Yeah, building your personal brand. I can't believe it's come to this.
I'm so sorry I said the words. But there's a ton of integrity in that as well that I'm finding. And I'm positioning myself within LinkedIn as much as I'm positioning my business now. It's one and the same.
It's a bit of a necessity, but there's also a demand for authentic content. I think it can be a real separator if it's used effectively.
Yeah.
I want to pivot away now to something that you would have seen throughout your career and as a leader in this space. The relationship between brand and agency is something that's hotly discussed at the moment across the industry, and it's something that's changing quite rapidly.
Yeah.
I want to know what you think of the current state of the agency brand relationship, and if there are any sort of mistakes or errors that you see coming to the fore at the moment.
God, it's such an interesting question, because I mean, it's been 5 years then since having that leadership role at Vodafone and managing WPP at the time, then working as a consultant, and now with my own business, I'm effectively the agency and I'm working with clients.
Yeah.
I've kind of got this other experience with it.
You've got experience on both sides.
Yeah.
You can also peer from the outside looking in. You know what it's like to be inside. You've got all the experience.
And within that like 20 or so years, I worked in China at Mindshare and in Dubai at Havas. So first-hand experience of kind of what it was like, really at the coalface of agency world and agency client relationships. So I'll kind of answer it, I guess, in two ways. I think I saw, so kind of looking back, I saw a lot of bad practice. So I always saw myself and the business as the client working in partnership with the agency. I was never a massive fan of kind of draconian measures or treat them as a vendor. I had a good relationship with procurement at Vodafone particularly, and I think we kind of got to striking a relatively good balance in terms of getting the best out of our agency whilst also recognizing any internal agendas and imperatives that we needed to kind of deliver on around cost savings or whatever. Regardless of that, it's about partnership, which is about kind of going back to some of the values you spoke about with leadership, having some integrity and just being human and showing like credible trust, like turn up every day. I used to make a point of getting down to the agency's offices and working from there, and I always have done throughout my career, actually, like at least once a week. So you get to spend time. Don't treat them like shit. It's like the worst thing you can do. And I think also the other thing that clients need to take or needed to take, I'm hoping I'm still current 5 years on, needed to take responsibility for was briefing and communication, that clarity. Like, if you're outsourcing the work, which is totally okay to do in an agency client relationship, at least take responsibility for defining the question that the agency needs to answer in the most rigorous, evidenced, powerful and motivating way with the right kind of swim lanes so that they can respond to that. So that's kind of how I saw it. And I saw on the agency side, China and Dubai, oh my God, lots of incredibly bad examples of clients, especially in China, that I worked with who just really didn't know how to get the best out of agencies. And I just think that's so unfortunate. Now, God, so hard for agencies, I think, within the current climate of empowered clients who, and I led some of this change at Vodafone with in-housing, who where in-housing makes sense is where it's strategically the right thing to do to take ownership of a discipline and a capability and bring that in-house. For Vodafone, that was like search, social, programmatic media. The agency then needs to kind of respond and build around that. Do you know the ironic thing? What we learned through the Vodafone process, they actually made the agency-client relationship stronger through that readjustment and rebalancing of roles and responsibilities. And kind of hats off to WPP at the time. It was Wavemaker, who across the different markets where we were leading that change did an incredible job of facilitating the change, which is a significant amount of time and resource and dollars coming out of their business and into being managed by Vodafone.
I think where that has changed is that's a very sort of healthy response to a relationship of how can we make this more constructive than what it is, and responding to things on a needs basis. Now I think it's just happening everywhere, and they sort of can't afford to do that with all their clients. But it's true. I think the environment for agencies is only becoming more complex, and I don't see that changing a whole heap in the future. And this brings me on to the final question I want to touch on before we get onto the Resell Me a Pen challenge to round out the show.
Yeah.
I know you're looking forward to that.
Yes.
What's the biggest threat to the industry at the moment, and how can marketing leaders prepare for that threat and perhaps turn it into an opportunity?
I could give you an answer. Somebody in the seat could give you an answer that talks to technological change and the onset of AI, and that being the definitive disruptor for marketers. And indeed, right, like there's no denying it. It's incredibly powerful change. As a marketer, at least I like to call myself a marketer, and an advocate of the capability, I think the biggest threat to marketing is irrelevance and insignificance. And I think it kind of just echoing the things that we talked about earlier, this death by a thousand cuts of like chopping the function. Like nobody wants to call themselves a marketer anymore. They want to call themselves a growth leader or a GTM engineer.
There'll be GEO specialists before we know it as well.
Well, that's fine. I'm all in on that, actually. It's a great point, right? That specific example, so the execution of marketing will change over time from SEO to GEO, and that, using that example specifically. But the drivers and the context of where that comes from, marketing as an understanding of what customers need, the urgent problems that a business needs to solve to deliver value, that will make that business chosen over and above their competition. That's a kind of wordy definition of marketing. But, that executed through SEO or GEO, you can adapt to change.
The channels and strategies might change, but the essence of what marketing 100%. Is won't. And it hasn't neither. It hasn't. It hasn't.
And, that Mark Ritson course, there was a lot of truth in it, in the fundamentals of marketing. Those haven't changed at all. And I think that's why I love positioning, it's at the core of marketing strategy and at the core of business strategy. And it's really fundamental as a catalyzer of how businesses need to go to market and solve those urgent business problems, or customer problems, should I say. Marketing needs to remain relevant and constant in addressing the changing nature of the problems that customers have, and the way that they're solved, and the way that you go to market more effectively as technology changes. And
I think
so
people can forget about the importance of their relationship with consumers when they get so caught up in everything else, the AI of it all, the new channels, the new metrics, the new ways to measure. Is creativity something that can be replaced? You've got to think about your relationship with your consumers, and their sort of, the way that people shop is changing so dramatically as well. It's not just marketers that are facing change. It's the very people we're trying to sell to.
Something like 95% of B2, and so just focusing on B2B, because I think it's more interesting than B2C, actually. I agree, right?
Completely.
So, and it's often called like boring to business or something like that, isn't it? Right. So it lacks emotion and creativity a lot of the time. So that doesn't recognize that you're dealing with humans. There's the onset of AI as vehicles for decisioning. Something like 95% of B2B decision makers will harness AI technologies to at least compile a decision or a short list of recommendations, if not make a decision from that without even visiting like websites. You kind of, that does all the work for you now. So without kind of pitching the positioning thing again, but if you're kind of positioning to just humans now, it's kind of like, it's part of it, but it's not all of it. You need to position to machines where the discoverability is happening, which is part of the version model. We're fundamentally changing the way, and need to change the way that we surface and communicate what your business and brand does now. We need to recognize that humans are changing around technology, and we need to use technology in ways that we can connect with them.
Is it time to start marketing to machines? I think
100%.
We'll leave it there, because that's a question that we've specifically dug into here on PMW recently, and I think what you've said there is salient. Before we run out of time, Paul, it is now that we need to move on to the Resell Me a Pen challenge. Do you want to reveal to myself and the listeners, before I put you on the clock, what it is you're going to attempt to resell?
I just grab it?
Yeah, by all means. Yeah. You brought it into the studio. This is a first.
Well, yeah.
Amazing.
Should I announce it?
Yes. Can you announce to those who are listening and not watching what you've got?
Yes.
What you have got in your hand there? Because I think it's the first time we've got a Resell Me a Pen challenge where someone has brought the object in. So what have you got there?
Well, that's crazy. This is great television. So I've got a Post-it note, or a book of Post-it notes, or a pad of Post-it notes.
The classic Post-it note. I love it. Now,
fluorescent pink.
Fluorescent pink for everyone there listening at home. Paul, you've got 60 seconds to resell me the Post-it note. I'll give you a warning when there's 30 seconds remaining and when there is 10 seconds remaining. Your time starts now.
I did write a little script to go with this because of the hallucinations from taking so much medicine and drugs. So yeah, I'll go for this. So in a world saturated with apps, alerts, and endless digital notifications, I want to sell you on a piece of technology that has zero distractions. It requires no login, never needs a software update, and the battery life is infinite. I'm talking about the Humble Post-it Note. We think of it as a simple reminder tool, but it's so much more. It's the ultimate brain to page interface. It allows you to focus explicitly, and it's, if you've ever done a whiteboarding exercise or it been in a room to brainstorm, it's the atom of all those ideas. So let's recognize, I think, the hero of business innovation and creativity is the Post-it Note.
Terrific. That's the Michael Jordan flu game of resell me a pen challenges right there.
Awesome.
Under the illness cloud, we've got it in 52 seconds, 8 seconds to spare.
Boom.
And you hit on a huge point at the end there that I really enjoyed. Who was it who said, you write a problem down, you've got it 90% solved already? I think
I don't know, maybe it was you, because that's just gold dust.
I think it's Post-it notes that really speak to that. In a world we've got so much stimulus coming our way, the humble Post-it note of just putting something down, sticking up on a whiteboard and looking at it, you've got that visual representation in your brainstorm, can really get you a long way to solving whatever problem it is in front of you.
We've talked about marketing to humans and machines, right? And it's the same in terms of productivity. Like, you can use Miro and Notion, that's all fine. But like, there's nothing like having a Post-it note and just being able to write it down, just have it right next to your keyboard. And it's all good, ready to go.
There's a bit of a lure to that as well. You feel like a real true marketer, like that guy from A Beautiful Mind, where you're just piecing things together and you can almost visually see how your ideas are formed. I think it's a really fun practice.
Yeah,
I can appreciate that, Paul. A terrific Resell Me a Pen challenge to round out a terrific episode of the show. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Pleasure.
Despite the illness, I think it was terrific.
Thank you. I hope I was comprehensible.
And that concludes this episode of the Performance Marketing Unlocked podcast. A big thank you to our guest this week, Paul Evans, the founder and chief positioning engineer at Version, particularly for battling through his illness and doing a really good job making some really salient points. I think if that was me, we all know I would have completely lost all coherence by the end of that. So well done, Paul. Thank you, of course, to you, the loyal listener, for tuning in each and every week as you do. We will be back in 7 days' time with another episode of the Performance Marketing Unlocked podcast. Don't forget, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the show on your podcast platform of choice. And don't forget to give us some love across social media. We're posting clips and full episodes on LinkedIn, TikTok, and YouTube. With all that said, have an amazing week, and you'll be hearing from me again very shortly. Bye for now.